Muslims, let me know if this is something you do. When I read the Quran and I find a story that contradicts the narrative of the scriptures before it, the very scriptures it's referencing in the story, I always look up, whether Google it or whatever, is this story found in the Jewish Midrash? Okay? Because I am shocked how much of the Quran is a repetition of the oral traditions and even the written traditions of the Midrash of the Jews. It's not new revelation. It's just repeating these legends and stories and commentaries from Rabbi.
I don't know what your point is here, but it's right off the bat, it's not off to a good start. Surah Fussilat 41-43. Nothing is said to you except what was already said to the messengers before you. The number of verses Quran says that it has come to confirm the previous scriptures of the Torah and the Injil is the, and it's a criterion over the scripts that you guys have. So the fact that you're finding parts of it here and there is exactly what Quran claims. Your story is backing what the Quran says it's here to do. You're supposed to find parts of those stories here or there. So right off the bat, not off to a good start.
Which is just, it's intriguing to me that it considers the rabbi to be legitimate sources for revelation.
It's just mistakes after mistakes, bro. Surah Al-Ma'idah 544. Indeed, we revealed the Torah in which was guidance and light. The prophets who submitted judged by it for the Jews, as did the rabbis. Their mention is right there. Allah also says in this verse, Surah Al-Araf 7:159, and among the people of Moses is a community who guides by truth and establish justice by it. They're mentioned. Not all of them are alike.
You stupid.
So we're not off to a good start, my man.
Perfect example of this is in Surah An-Nisa, Surah 4, verse 153. It gives the narrative that when Muhammad went to the people of the book, they demanded of him to bring down a revelation or a writing from heaven. They wanted it all at once. They demanded the Quran to be revealed all at once in a writing that was similar to the tablets of Moses. Now, here's what Allah tells Muhammad. They're demanding what is even greater than this from Moses. What did they demand from Moses? They demanded Moses make Allah visible to us. Okay, at what point, if you're familiar with the Torah, you'll be asking yourself this, at what point did the Hebrew people ask Moses to make Allah visible to them?
See, that's what I mean. Low cognition. Surah Al-Imran 691. You make it, the Torah, into parchments, aka papers, revealing some of it and concealing much. The Timu version of Torah you have is not the original Torah. The original Torah was destroyed during the destruction of Babylon. You don't have the original scrolls of Torah. You have the makeshift Timu version of them. And they're heavily edited.
And then it goes on and says, so a thunderbolt struck them for their wrongdoing. Now the only part that the Quran is accurate with its retelling of the narrative from the Torah is that they took a calf for worship after receiving clear signs. But what is this about a thunderbolt striking them for their wrongdoing because it was wrong of them to demand to see Allah? What's going on? Because when you read the actual Torah.
The actual Torah.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
God tells Moses, I'm going to descend upon the mountain, prepare yourself and sanctify the people. And then when God came, and I mean the language is very clear, God descended, God came. Moses explains as such. And as God descends and God came, the scriptures tells us that there was fire and lightning and thunder and smoke and earthquake. And the people exceedingly feared and trembled, and they demanded of Moses to not make us approach. We can't stand this. We can't stand in the presence of God. We can't approach it. There was no idea in the Torah presented that they were asking to see God. So where'd that idea come from? Did Muhammad just make it up?
So this is what I mean. This is why Quran is for the intelligent. Quran does say clearly that Allah sees them for their wrongdoings, alright, with a lightning bolt. They asked to see Allah. Allah revealed himself to the mountain, which crumbled. He literally said there were lightning bolts, everything was happening. They were like, we can't take this, we can't take this, we can't take this. Allah sees them, and literally the next verse revived them so they may be grateful. And then they took the calf for worship after that. So the distortion where Allah says among the Jews there are people who distort words from their proper places, this is where the correction needs to happen. They asked for a miracle, they paid the consequence of that miracle, and they still got a chance because Allah revived them. And they still didn't accept belief.
Well, I've learned, just go ahead and Google, is there or Gemini AI, whatever you want to use, and ask, is there any Jewish legend or Midrash that describe the people asking Moses to make God visible? And there is. Without fail, if you do the research, you'll find it.
Because it happened. Quran says it happened. You're supposed to find it. Man, it's crazy that these guys are trying to make an argument against Quran while trying to simultaneously make an argument for the Quran.
So this source is called Mekila Rabbi Ishmael. It's an early Midrash on the book of Exodus, which is basically a commentary. And it's from the classic commentator Rashi. pretty well known in Jewish communities. And he talks about in his Midrash asking, okay, in Exodus 19:9, God tells Moses, behold, I am coming to you in a thick cloud that the people may hear when I speak to you, and that they may also believe you forever. Makes sense, okay? Moses claims to be a prophet. God says, I'm going to speak to you directly from heaven so people know that you are a prophet, which happened when in the New Testament?
That's the point. That never happened for Jesus. That happened for Moses, and your 40 anonymous authors over the last 1500 years edited the crap out of it, and now they attributed that event from Moses to Jesus. You just proved the distortion Quran mentions in the previous scriptures. Well done.
The baptism of Jesus. And what did the voice from heaven declare? Not that Jesus was a prophet, but the voice declared, you are my son.
Acts 8:37, the verse that Jesus, Son of God, was added between 4th to 6th century, and it was removed from the main text in 2011. Luke 23:34, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, is missing from the 175 CE, is added later. Mark 16:9-20, resurrection ending, added between 4th to 6th century. John 8:1-11, the story about casting the first stone is added between 4th to 8th century. Are these the scriptures we're really actually going to start quoting?
Listen to him. 3 times it happened in the ministry of Jesus, but that's another story. All right. So the Midrash asks, what did the people say that prompted God to speak to them directly instead of just using Moses as a messenger? Okay. Now this is a question that the text doesn't answer. So according to the rabbi, the people rejected a hidden revelation and demanded direct, visible contact. The Midrash records their response to Moses was, we want to hear from our king directly. We want to see our king. Now what's interesting is the Midrash is not making that request something that is wrong. Now the Quran claims it was wrong.
I agree. There's a lot of things Jews didn't think it was wrong. Samuel 15:3, now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have. Spare them not, but slay both men, women, infants, suckling ox, sheep, camel, and ass. While Allah tells them, Surah Al-Ma'idah 5:32, because of that we decreed upon the children of Israel, Jews, that whoever kills a soul unless for a soul or corruption in the land, it is as if he have killed all mankind. And whoever saves one, it is as if he had saved all mankind. You see the difference? There's a lot of things Jews don't think is wrong. So that's not a really good argument, my man.
And Allah punished them for wanting to see them. In the Midrash, it says that this demand was actually a child wanting to see their father, because it goes on and explains, the sages explain with this parable as an explanation to the demand. A king had children and he wanted to speak to them through a mediator. The children replied to the mediator, we do not want you to speak to us, we desire to hear directly from our father. We want to see our king, because hearing about him is not the same as seeing him. And upon hearing this deep desire from the people, God agreed to manifest his presence openly on the mountain, leading to the grand visual and auditory experience of the theophany at Sinai. And so the Midrash, while there's striking conceptual resemblances to the Quranic verses, the Quran says in Surah 255, we will never believe you until we see Allah plainly. There's 2 major differences in the context and tone, but both accounts, whether it's the Jewish Midrashic account or the Quranic account, they're both made up. They're not from a prophet.
So first, his entire argument was that Quran takes stories from them, and then it says there's 2 major differences, therefore they're not similar. And on top of that, the fact that Allah explicitly says in Surah Al-Ma'idah 5:13, they have forgotten a portion of what they were reminded of. So for not only this genius just said that they are similar in the beginning, and now it says it has 2 major differences, which contradicts the fact that Quran has taken anything from them, and then proceeds to say none of them are true, which prove this verse right, that they have forgotten a portion of it. You gotta understand, if there's any disagreements between your books and the Quran, Quran is the criterion, your books are the ones that is wrong.
So Muhammad is repeating a legend that's not from a prophet and claiming that it's a prophetic story, that it actually happened. That's a big red flag. Okay. Now in the Jewish Midrash account, the motivation for God coming to his people is for love and intimacy, because they desired to see, that they weren't rebellious in asking, they wanted to see their king. Whereas in the Quranic account, it's about skepticism and defiance. Okay. Why do you think that in the Quran they would project upon the Hebrew people skepticism and defiance directed toward Moses? Why do you think? And then why do you think there's a threat of punishment for defying God's prophet?
Not wanting to do something until you get X is the core definition of rebellion and defiance. They were saying we are not going to do X until we get Y. That is defiance by definition, regardless of what your intent is. This is what I mean, bro. I don't even need to debunk their topics. They just do it for me.